Welcome to another in our series of Kehillat Israel podcasts. This is a recording of Rabbi Amy Bernstein's weekly Friday morning Torah study.
We are in a collection of laws in Deuteronomy, and as we read through them, they will feel very random. Like how some of them it makes sense why they're put together. Others of them seems to make no sense. If you're ever interested, there is an outline of all the laws of Deuteronomy. We're about here, so we're in the middle of this huge collection of laws. And when you look at how laws are organized as they're written down in the ancient world, it's not exactly logic in terms of intrinsically to the laws what might hold them together. Like a theme, let's say, land. Okay, well, let's get all the laws about land. Now let's get all the laws about taking care of the poor. Now that would make sense to us as modern Western thinkers. In the ancient world, as we know, they thought a little differently. So rather than organize everything exactly by category and how they relate to, and laws that relate to each other through that category or subject matter, the organization in the ancient world is called concatenation. These words I know that are completely useless in the world. Completely useless.
Hard to work into a conversation.
That's right. So concatenation is about actually it's in jewelry when you put something together to make a chain. That's what that word means. And so that's the way laws in the ancient Near East are organized. And so it doesn't make a lot of sense to us, which can get frustrating. It's like, wait, what? Like, what? Why? Why is that? Like, after that, it makes no sense. So you don't get a sense of the
thing.
Well, you don't get a real good sense of the subject. Like if we start talking about tort law, right? You get all the laws having to do with property, and you get kind of a sense of what that society thinks about in terms of relationship to owning stuff, right? Or owning land. So you kind of get a philosophy from the law. It's harder with the laws arranged this way because it's not complete. You're not getting a lot of stuff on one subject. You're getting stuff like this that you then have to figure out. If you wanted to find everything having to do with land, you'd have to go grab all those laws and put them together, and now let's study that to get an idea of what their relationship to the land, right?
Is there
and ownership
an order
would be
of some sort? Is there a different kind of order?
Yes. So for them, sometimes it was about how the laws are stated. So sometimes it may be about a clause that's used, so they'll find other laws that have that same clause to introduce them. And this is common in the ancient world. We find it in the Code of Hammurabi. So this is not unusual in the ancient world. So Torah is not special that way. It's how things were done in ancient law codes. All right, so we're jumping into kind of the middle of the law code. Remember that we've talked about Deuteronomy is a religious reform. So part of why we get these laws here is because this is now how it's to be understood, how you're supposed to do it. There may have been other understandings before, right? And Deuteronomy will differ from other understandings, right? Because it is a religious reform. So we'll see some repetition, but we will see some differences in those. And then if we have time, I just want to do a fun piece with you. All right. I know fun and Deuteronomy generally not words that you would associate with each other. All right, 24, we're going to begin at our triennial section, so the last section of this parsha, the last third of the parsha, beginning at 24:14, according to Hebcal.
You shall not abuse a needy and destitute laborer, whether a fellow countryman or a stranger in one of the communities of your land. You must pay him his wages on the same day, before the sun sets, for he is needy and urgently depends on it, else he will cry to the Lord against you, and you will incur guilt. All
right, so here we get day laborers. We get people who are paid by the day for their work, and it is assumed that if that is how they work, then they are living hand to mouth. And so to delay their wages past the day that they work means they're counting on that cash to buy dinner on the way home and to have something to eat in the morning. So Torah is very clear. For a day laborer, you may not delay giving them the cash because they depend on it, and it is abhorrent, right? You will incur guilt. You can't do it. It's chet. I mean, the word chet is used here. Sin. All right. 16.
Parents shall not be put to death for children, nor children be put to death for parents. A person shall be put to death only for his own crime.
So obviously, something else was going on in the neighborhood, right? Obviously, there's a system whereby if someone commits a crime, you can say, okay, take my firstborn son, right, and execute him and spare me, or vice versa, right? That the father is killed because of what the son does. Clearly, Torah says, can't do it. That people are held accountable for their own behavior and only their own behavior.
So what happens, I believe the current law in Israel is when there's a suicide bomber, the idea will come and destroy the home. His home, which makes homeless his relatives or her relatives, kind of goes against this.
Well, does it go against the spirit of this law? Maybe. Maybe. But I think executing and using punitive means to dissuade others from doing stuff, right? I don't know. I wouldn't. Are they in the same family? Yes. But I don't mean family. Are they related concepts? Yes. I do think execution is different than we're gonna make sure it is unpleasant for the people left, right? As a deterrent.
Just ratcheting down a notch.
A lot, right? I mean, look, it's not. I'm not defending it. I'm just saying does it go against the spirit of this? Maybe, but you'd have to extend the spirit pretty far, right?
I mean, the person's already dead, so you can't kill a suicide bomber because he has now killed other people. He's already dead, so I think that thought is you have to do something. It's
a deterrent.
Right.
It's a deterrent for somebody else who says, I'm going to go to heaven and have 70 virgins. Okay, great, but what's going to happen to your family is that, the Israeli government's going to destroy their home. Are you down with that? Right? So it's really a deterrent from somebody else deciding this would be a good idea because it's going to impact their families.
With all due respect, relative to this law, that feels like a stretch.
Well, so that's what I'm saying. I think that's what I'm saying. And lots of people rush in, as the Israeli government well knows, lots of people rush in to support the family of suicide bombers. They're supported for life. So, all right. It's an ugly business, whichever way you look at it. All right, 17.
You shall not subvert the rights of the stranger or the fatherless. You shall not take a widow's garment in pawn. Remember that you were a slave in Egypt, and that the Lord your God redeemed you from there. Therefore do I enjoin you to observe this command.
All right, so this is not unfamiliar to us, right? This is, Deuteronomy is re-emphasizing, right, that the stranger and the orphan are vulnerable. And because they are vulnerable, you must protect them. And you were strangers in the land of Egypt. You were vulnerable, so you will act out of empathy and identification with the orphan and the stranger. The widow is a special case here. If you want to borrow money, you have to give a pledge, right? In case you renege on your debt. And so people could distrain other people's property if they're going to give them a loan. But you may not distrain the widow's garment. Because, why?
That's all she's got. She has no support.
Was there assumption she sleeps on it?
So the assumption is she sleeps in it, right? It's her. You slept in your cloak as a blanket.
Keep you warm.
If you're poor, in particular if you're poor, but why a widow? Why is this different from a stranger or an orphan?
Because she doesn't have
the support or the bounty that a husband could provide.
And what about the orphan?
Same thing.
So how come she's a different case?
And the orphan?
Mm-hmm.
How different?
It just says about the widow that you can't take her garment as collateral. It doesn't say that about the stranger or the orphan.
Well, for the orphan, they probably figure that the person isn't that horrible that you would take something from an orphan.
I love how Sarah Moskowitz sees the world. I just do.
The stranger and the orphan are treated differently too. You can't subvert the rights of A or B, and the widow's not included in that. So maybe you can subvert her rights, and you can't take the cloak of the widow.
All right, reading from a lawyer.
I think an orphan can be adopted, but maybe traditionally they wouldn't marry a widow.
So the rabbis seem to think this has something to do with the last indignity for a woman who's been left alone. The last indignity would be to take her garment, that with which she covers herself. And the rabbinic imagination goes even further, because you got to love the rabbis. And they say, well, if you're coming to give it back to her every night, right? If you take it during the day and you come to give it back to her each night, could lead to dancing. So, just saying.
Interesting in this one is just that it's not just the rule. Like the last two were just the rule, and this one is the rule and the reason.
Right. So we don't always get a reason.
So it is again with the slave.
Again with the slave. So this is a normal coupling for us. The stranger, vulnerable, you were slaves. Vulnerable, protect them, you were slaves. Love the stranger, you were slaves, right? This is a normal pairing. So this is not unusual for us to see. Other places we get kind of reasoning for the law, and other places we don't. So one way you might choose to organize laws are the places where you get a bunch of reasons, right? That's in the ancient world they might have done. That's the way they would organize stuff. Yes, Bert?
But at least the English here, and I think the Hebrew is in the singular, which I found interesting. You were a slave.
Uh-huh.
You were slaves. So
right.
it is addressed to each individual.
Yes.
As in this particular
these are all
case,
addressed
personal
individuals.
Responsibility.
This is to the landowner. These laws are addressed to the master of the house. Okay. 19.
When you reap the harvest in your field and overlook a sheaf in the field, do not turn back to get it. It shall go to the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow, in order that the Lord your God may bless you in all your undertakings.
Go on.
When you beat down the fruit of your olive... Hold on. Right. To get the right page is sticking. I'm assuming...
Bush.
The next word
Tree.
is tree. Olive trees. Do not go over them again. They shall go to the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow. When you gather the grapes of your vineyard, do not pick it over again. That shall go to the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow. Always remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt. Therefore do I enjoin you to observe this commandment. Okay.
So this is about, right, the poor. So more stuff about the poor and more stuff about providing for the poor. So there are different terms for all of these things. What taken together with Leviticus 19, the rabbis come up with 4 categories. So we had these laws in Leviticus. There are slight differences that mean they come up with 4 different categories of this business, right? So peah, shichacha, leket, and pered. So we have this idea of the edges of the field being left unreaped so that the poor can reap. So this is, of course, what we see in the book of
Leviticus.
Ruth. Right? The book of Ruth. Ruth is allowed to glean in the field of Boaz, because Boaz is a righteous Israelite and allows the poor to glean in his field, right? And she goes behind them and picks up what drops, and the poor can harvest the edges of the field.
I mean, it seems that there's an implication that you take care of yourself first, and if you have any excess, you give it to the stranger.
You're half right.
Not excess.
You take care of yourself first.
And your family. And
you take care of them by eating most or selling most of your harvest. But you don't own the edges of the produce from the edges of your field, or what drops as people are gleaning doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the poor. Because all of it belongs to God. So God says you get to use most of your harvest for however you want. The edges of your field and what drops, or the olives that remain on the tree once you've beaten it, that belongs to the poor. You're stealing from the poor if you take it.
It's not a concept of sharing. This has nothing to do with this.
Well, sort of. I don't know that we need to parse so much a word that applies. What it means is it doesn't all belong to you. Part of it belongs to the poor, because that is how you build a just society that is reflective of what God wants from us.
In the meantime, there's several widows here. Would you pass those grapes back?
Yeah, pass the grapes. There they go.
And honestly, when Bert was reading, I thought of the scavenger. Scavengers clear off everything. And that's the opposite of the way humans clear.
Very nice, Dana. Very nice. So, right, scavengers, clean down to the bones, right? And you're not supposed to behave like scavengers.
Human basis.
Sure. Well, right. Our instinct is to hoard. Our instinct is to get as much as possible. And this is the argument when the angels went to God and said, "You're going to give those monkeys the greatest gift in the universe? You're going to give them Torah? Master of the universe, how could you possibly give your divine Torah to those animals?" And God turns to the angels and says, "Do you kill each other? Do you steal from each other? Right? What do you need Torah for?" That only people who are generally avaricious need to be told to share. Right?
Yeah.
Torah's written to deal with our instincts, right? And to curb our natural tendencies, right? It doesn't say it's a bad thing to want to keep it all. It just says to build a just society, a society built on holiness, you can't. Doesn't, right? Which I love about Judaism. It doesn't say, y'all are horrible because, you want more. It just says you can't take all of it. It just assumes we're going to want more.
You try to fix it.
And try to put some limits on our natural tendencies. But Torah totally understands who we are, right? And totally understands our instincts. You okay, Sheldon?
Yeah, fine.
Yeah?
I was thinking that the edge of the field, the edge is not as fertile or not as good. But here it says the actual good stuff, leave the good stuff, so it's even more
helpful.
Yeah.
And also it's about dignity, right? So it isn't about the produce itself. A lot of this is about dignity. If you live in an agrarian culture and it's harvest time, everyone who has means goes to harvest their field or goes to work as a laborer harvesting someone else's crops, right? If you're destitute, then you're not doing any of that. So Torah protects against the humiliation of handouts, right? By saying when it's harvest time, the poor will also harvest their food. They will harvest their crops, which is the edges of y'all's and anything that falls while y'all are harvesting. That, right? They're going to harvest their crop. And for me, that is just as important as the food, because there could have been other ways. Look at Joseph, right? There's other ways to do it. Like just harvest your whole field and take 10% and give it to the food bank, But Torah says no. You're going to normalize being poor.
And saved it.
And they're going to do what everyone else is doing when it's time to harvest.
I know this is just very obvious, but the edges are the most accessible. And so You don't have to walk across the field and have everybody look at you. You just appear at the edges.
Very nice. So I think it is about dignity, right? That if you have to go to the center of the field, like to start and move your way out, right? It is. You're in center stage, right? And if you're going behind people who are reaping, can people really tell who's working and who's poor and picking up? But you're part of the train that's moving along, right? And so I think a lot of this is about preserving the dignity and self-respect of the poor. We okay?
Yeah, we're good.
We're doing all right?
It was interesting. I kind of see the opposite of what Sarah, her interpretation, that if you're just limited to the outside, these are people on the fringe. But if you're allowed to go in, you're seen and you're part of, and you are known, and this is part of my community. You're not stealthily on the fringe, not wanting to be seen.
So
The way I kind of,
I'm sure both.
yeah.
I'm sure a lot of it depends on how the people who own the field and work the field treat people. Remember, Boaz says to his workers, make sure she's not harassed. Because it's obvious if she's following behind them to grab what falls, it's obvious that she's
there.
poor and doesn't have a husband, right? Because he would be providing. So if Boaz has to say, make sure she's not harassed, that means often they were, right? And again, Torah's giving the ideal, but how people enforce this, how they live this out, were people, right? So I'm sure it could go either way. It's about the behavior of the people. It's like us. I feel that way. I feel this very keenly, what you're talking about, with the issue of homelessness, right? And when I see somebody who doesn't have a home, and it just is like, it's that feeling of, I don't want to see because it's so painful, right? And of course I have to see because otherwise I'm denying somebody's dignity and my own confrontation with my own avarice, right? That keeps me occupied with what I have and what I need to get more of, rather than focusing on laws and being active about legislation that would actually help the situation, right? So I think that it's very similar. How do we behave when confronted with the poor and the hungry? All right. Okay. No, we're good still.
Chapter 25.
Yes.
When there's a dispute between men and they go to law, and a decision is rendered declaring that the one in the right and the other in the wrong, if the guilty one is to be flogged, the magistrate shall have him lie down and be given lashes in his presence by count as his guilt warrants. He may be given up to 40 lashes, but not more, lest being flogged further to excess, your brother be degraded before your eyes.
So apparently up to 40 lashes is not degrading. 40 and forward is... this was common in the ancient world. Flogging was a common form of punishment in the ancient world. Whenever I read about the Pilgrims and I read about our early society, right, and being in... What do you call it? Yeah. And publicly whipped. This is absolutely normal. Corporal punishment was one form of punishment in the ancient world. We hate it. That's a good thing. But you can't flog someone to death. You can't flog. Again, Torah's there always to put a limit. Torah's not judging flogging. Flogging was just understood to be part of the justice system. But you can't. What Torah's going to do is limit, right, your ability to damage somebody permanently. It's. Or like it says, like to degrade them into a place that is just has nothing to do with punishment anymore.
Seems like 40 lashes could kill.
I know. I'm just kind of like, okay, whatever. Like
Did Singapore got 40 lashes with flogging because of the gum? Wasn't that?
So yeah, you could use a cane. You could use a stick.
Later, the rabbis in the Talmud, there's a whole tractate, I think it's called Makot, that just deals with flogging.
and
which is
srifa,
hard for us to
and,
deal.
Right, so there's burning. There's
But how to do it, how you don't do it, when you do this, when you do that.
Yep.
Let's take a survey of our mitzvahs and which part is worship.
Oh yeah, we skip this. All right, 4.
You shall not muzzle an ox while it is threshing.
Okay, we understand why. Yes. Good. So it's cruel to ask an animal to stomp on food and not be able to eat it. Like its job is to. Threshing was done by pulling, something over the grain, and so it's cruel to ask an animal to do that and muzzle it so that it can't eat while it does that. And actually, this continues in the Middle East. This continues to be the case that people don't muzzle oxen while they thresh.
In Muslim countries
where
as well?
Where people have oxen threshing. Yes. Okay.
The rabbis must go all over the place with this. Do they extend it to people and to...
No.
No, I don't mean the threshing, but the idea...
Muzzling?
No, the idea of kindness and not putting someone in a position where...
Yeah, they generally don't extrapolate from animals to humans.
Okay.
They'll look at other they'll look at other laws about humans to extend that to say, and therefore you should also not. Or you should also be sure to.
Okay, when brothers dwell together, and one of them dies and leaves no son, the wife of the deceased shall not be married to a stranger outside the family. Her husband's brother shall unite with her. He shall take her as his wife and perform the levir's duty. The first son that she bears shall be accounted to the dead brother, that his name may not be blotted out in Israel. But if the man does not want to marry his brother's widow shall appear before the elders in the gate and declare, my husband's brother refuses to establish a name in Israel for his brother. He shall not perform the duty of a levir. The elders of his town shall then summon him and talk to him. If he insists, saying...
Talk to him. They'll talk to him.
If he insists by saying, I do not want to marry her, his brother's widow shall go up to him in the presence of the elders, pull the sandal off his foot, spit in his face, and make this declaration. Thus shall be done to the man who will not build up his brother's house, and he shall go in Israel by the name of the family of the unsandaled one.
Oh, my God. So,
unpack that a bit.
So what do we take from that?
Well, you can have more than one wife.
Well, that was...
What if the brother is married?
No.
Did it say unmarried brother?
No. She needs to be protected.
Yes.
Correct. So...
You better wear sandals with laces.
So
it says his husband's brother, her husband's brother, but it doesn't say an unmarried brother.
Right. So
maybe when brothers dwell together, one of them is unmarried.
Yeah. The implication is he's not married. But it doesn't mean he can't be. I mean, it was a polygamous, society. But he has an obligation to his brother. The obligation's not to her.
No, it's the name of
the obligation is to his dead brother. Right. So that the dead brother's name continues in Israel. Otherwise, he is considered as like he's truly gone and never existed. So that is the most horrifying thing people could imagine, right? Maybe not for us, but to have lived and then you're gone and it's like you never existed. That was the worst they could possibly imagine. And so we have here a leftover law about how to make sure that didn't happen. Richard and Sarah.
But it's awful that they assume that she's wanting the brother.
They do not assume she wants the brother. She doesn't have a choice.
It's her duty.
What if she doesn't want him?
It's her duty.
There are discussions of that, but it's not in Torah. According to Torah, she needs to accept because she doesn't have many options.
If she doesn't, she's going to be a widow.
Correct.
She's not.
Correct. People were not anxious to marry widows, right? And you want a virgin as your bride, right? Remember, the high priest is not allowed to marry, right? Somebody who's been married before. There's something about she's been tainted in a way.
She's going to say nothing's changed.
Yeah. Right?
I don't think I can say
Well, at that time there were no.
How many times have you been married, Judith? Okay, so I don't think you're living proof of people don't want to marry a widow. Yeah. You might want to pipe down over there.
Am I correct at that time there were no last names?
Richard?
Are we talking about preserving the family name?
Yes. Well, his name.
There's no last names at that point.
No, it's his,
no
it's
last
his
name.
name in the family. So, if Mehmet is Mehmet ben Avraham, then it's, David ben Avraham, there is no family name. There's no surname. So it's David ben Avraham. That name's going to be gone, right? So
when did last names? So was that in the 19th century?
I have no idea. You're
Last
way
names?
out of my
19th
time expertise when you start talking about the 19th century. I have no clue what happened in the 19th century.
Well, I was a young man then, so.
But what is your sense from this, Robert?
I don't know. It seems obvious to me. She is entitled to bring on the ultimate humiliation to this person who is doing the wrong thing.
Yes.
Get much worse. That's right up there with taking the clothes away from a widow.
Mm-hmm. Women don't have a lot of power.
Really,
So what do you take from this? How is levirate marriage viewed by the society that writes this law and this ritual? Positively. And what about the guy who refuses to be a lever?
Worst.
The worst.
The unsandaled.
The worst. And he's known forever as the unsandaled one.
And it's the woman who gets the privilege
of spitting in his face publicly.
That certainly is so weird. Like, if she doesn't have a choice in any of it, why doesn't the elders get to unsandal him? That would be even worse.
So,
maybe
would
a
it?
lowly person unsandal you.
Answer, Laura.
You're degraded, humiliated. That's a woman is doing this to you.
That's the worst.
And this also has to do, I think, with property. That if there's the dead brother and he has no heir and she is cast out, then the surviving brother gets all the property. So it protects in that way too.
And so it gives her agency. She's just been rejected. She's just been told, I will not marry you and give you the son that you are entitled to and remain connected to this family whose protection you will enjoy. He's refusing her all of that. I can't imagine anything more, I can't imagine anything more satisfying than publicly spitting in his face.
Right. And his elders can't talk him out of this decision.
Right, they've already gone to him to say, dude,
you got
to do this. This is not okay, right? They talk to it. I imagine them taking him out back, right? And and having a little chat, right? And if that doesn't work, obviously this is somebody who is so selfish, right, and greedy that he won't give her a son who then has claims to.
I believe this was designed so that it never happened.
Right.
Yes, correct.
Talk about a deterrent.
Right?
It's hard.
We're about to get to other deterrents here.
Do we have to? One of Laura's new favorite passages of Torah, right? Isn't it great? All right, so
Can we go on with this? Yeah.
all right, we're going to do a little more, and then I want to go to a different part of the parsha.
Are we going to skip?
Yeah. Can
No, we can't skip.
Can we skip 11?
We can't skip 11.
Let's go for it.
All right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Get it on record.
Okay, we get this on the record. If two men get into a fight with each other, and the wife of one comes up to save her husband from the antagonist and puts out her hand and seizes him by the genitals, you shall cut off her hand, show no pity. Why in the world would you have no pity on a wife who tries to save her husband?
I got nothing.
You can't reconstruct this.
I got nothing.
Just no reconstruction.
I got nothing. The rabbis, of course, interpret this to mean that's silly. Cut off her. ridiculous. It means you have to pay the damages that would have been paid had her hand been disabled. It's, of course, about paying, right, the guy the same amount that her hand is worth, because in bodily damage, you assess, everything has a value. And just like in our insurance schedules, right? Everything had, like, if I'm 54, as I become 55, I'm worth less, right? So, your leg is worth this much, your arm is worth, your hand is worth this much. So it's saying the guy, has to be paid what her hand is worth. That's how the rabbis live with it.
And this doesn't apply to knees or feet. She can kick them.
Well,
And
the worst thing that could happen would be if you're in a fight and your wife comes up to save you, and she's so courageous and tough that you need her, and she's going to go and grab the other guy by his genitals. You do not want that to happen.
Correct.
So,
Does that have to do with the gentleman?
I have a question.
Yes, absolutely. That it's critical. It's because that's one of the people who want to try to defend this as a deterrent, is because his genitals are the way he reproduces. So you're not just injuring him. You're possibly preventing him from for generations. Exactly.
I think it's the ego. I think it's
Laura thinks she grabbed him by the balls. It's like that cannot happen.
As uncomfortable as this subject is.
For some more than others, I would imagine.
I'm a little unclear about the grammar in the Hebrew as to who it is.
He's right. It doesn't
It's not clear. Even in English, it's not clear.
Right. Which one gets
Is she protecting her husband, or is she sort of getting at the attacker to try to dissuade the attacker from continuing the fight?
It seems it's the attacker. She's grabbing the attacker.
Protecting the husband.
So, her intention is to protect her husband, but she can't really protect. I mean, how does she protect him? She disables his opponent.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, hechazika. I mean, she grabs. So it clearly isn't. She's not going to do that, presumably, to her husband.
This is obviously written because it has happened.
right. It's written.
So yes, either this has happened, or it's complete fantasy, like some things are, and it's just about men's dignity and But yes, maybe because it happened. All right, let's at least look at one more before we.
Okay, but this is easier.
This is easier. Okay.
Right? Doesn't involve any bodily parts. You shall not have in your pouch alternate weights, larger and smaller. You shall not have in your house alternate measures, a larger and a smaller. You must have completely honest weights and completely honest measures if you are to endure long on the soil that the Lord your God is giving you. For everyone who does those things, everyone who deals dishonestly, is abhorrent to the Lord your God.
All right. So honest weights and measures. This is, just about everybody knows that this one is in here, right? That you can't cheat.
There's one more that I guess we're not going to read today, and it's that you feed your animals before you feed yourself. It's in there somewhere.
I don't think so.
Well,
I don't think so.
No.
I think it's rabbinic.
Oh, maybe.
I think it's rabbinic law says you have to feed your animals before you eat.
Right.
And that you have to sit to eat. Otherwise, you are eating like an animal.
Yes.
So I believe it's rabbinic.
Rabbinic. Okay.
It's not in Tetze. If it is in Torah, it's not in Tetze.
Okay.
So I want to go back to the beginning of Parshat Tetze because I had a happy accident. Sometimes these happy accidents happen, and I just get so excited to share it with you because otherwise I'm just all by myself, going, Judy, you'll never guess.
It's a show and tell.
Right? She tries. God bless her. She tries, but she's just like, this is exciting. Why? So at Hartman, we studied Actually, I didn't realize it came from here till I opened Tetze, but we studied with a fabulous teacher, and he brought us this piece from Likutei Moharan, which is a Hasidic teaching. So he brought us this Hasidic teaching, and we loved it, and you know how sometimes you can't remember why afterwards, but we loved it, and we loved learning it with him. He's such a great teacher. And it was based on this verse of Torah, and I had just read a commentary by Rabbi Noah Farkas on the exact same verse, and I'm like, oh, I can do the Hartman piece with them, and it can be called Torah this time. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to look at this verse first. What?
No way.
Yeah. So excited. So excited. All right. 22:1. I was like, I can't believe it. It's this week's Parsha. All right. So 22:1. If you see your fellow's ox or sheep gone astray, do not ignore it. You must take it back to your fellow. If your fellow does not live near you, or you do not know where he is, you shall bring it home, and it shall remain with you until your fellow claims it. Then you shall give it back to him. And you're going to do the same with his ass, his garment, and anything your fellow loses and you find, you must not remain indifferent. Lo lehit alim. You cannot ignore it. So pay attention to the word here is v'chein ta'aseh lecho avedat achicha. You shall do the same with every avedah of your neighbor, meaning that which is lost. Something halach le'ibud. It's gone to be lost. All right. So let's look at. Yes, thank you. I did go back and get it. That's the original. We don't want that.
No finders, keepers, losers, weepers?
No finders, keepers, losers, weepers.
There
Not
was recently
in
something
Torah.
in the news. A bank accidentally gave thousands and thousands of dollars to somebody, and they went and spent it.
And now they're
And now they've been taken to court. They've been convicted of something.
yeah.
So it's not finders,
Maybe the
keepers.
22:1.
All right. So now we're going to look first at the commentary by Rabbi Noah Farkas, and then we'll look at this piece from Likutei Moharan.
Are there more?
There are not. I didn't count on so many people being here today, which is awesome. So, yeah, folks can share. That would be great.
Okay.
All right, you don't have a highlighted copy because I highlighted after I copied. Okay. So the last sentence of the first paragraph, we're talking about this idea of stuff that's lost, right? And he's quoting his great-grandfather, who used to say that just because something's out of sight doesn't mean it's lost. Right? When I go, my glasses are lost. No.
They're on your
They're on my, usually they're on my face. But you're right. But right, if they're not lost, it's that I can't locate them.
Yeah.
They're fine. They're in the house or in my purse or in the car or at work. Right? They're somewhere. They're not lost. I haven't found them yet, right? Or I just don't know where they are. So his grandfather says, for something to be truly lost, you have to lose hope. You have to despair over it and give up. Otherwise, they're just misplaced. For it to be lost, you have to have given up the hope of finding it. Right? Otherwise, it's not lost. It's just somewhere, and you don't know where that somewhere exactly is. Don't you live with when, where's the last place you had them?
I know.
That's where they are.
Right.
If I knew that, I wouldn't be looking for them, obviously. Okay, well, all right, so nothing is lost, he says, until you let it be. And nothing is lost until you let it be. All right, drop down to, in this week's Torah portion, Tetze, we learn about how to guard ourselves from losing hope. From all of the places that we could learn this idea, the Torah chooses to learn it from an ox. Do not see your fellow's ox or sheep, or if you see your fellow's ox or sheep gone astray, you must not ignore it. You must take it back to them. You are not allowed for missing to become lost. You must not ignore the animals. You must return them. Deeper still, the Torah's language is intentional when it says, do not see. Yeah, that's true. The Hebrew says, "Lo tir'eh et shor achicha," so don't see your fellow's ox or sheep as lost. The language of sight here is powerful. It is not only that you must return what is lost, but you cannot allow yourself to view the ox or sheep as lost. What begins as an obligation to return a missing animal transforms into an entire worldview. Do not see the world as lost. Do not see a world that is only dark with no light. Do not give up. Do not look upon the world and give up. You are not allowed to despair. The Midrash adds, you must surely return what is lost, even until the 1,000th time. You cannot ignore what is wrong and broken in the world. You cannot give up on it either. Nothing is lost until you let it be. According to legend, there was a large stone in the middle of the ancient city of Jerusalem called the Claimant's Stone. Anyone who lost something would be directed there to declare that they were looking for the item. Similarly, those who found lost objects would bring them to the stone and declare that they had found the item. In that place and upon that stone, those who have lost and those who have found would seek out one another. Right? We don't have such a stone anymore, he says. He said, it is in your hearts. The Hebrew word tshuva means return. Not just repentance from sin, but literally to return from some other place. At this time of year, when we prepare for the High Holy Days, we need to create spaces in our hearts for our own claimant's stone. A place inside yourself and with your community to declare something is lost and something has been found. In a few weeks, when we gather together as a people and wonder, where did my life go? Where did I put all my energy, my anger, my love, and worry? Where did my hope go? In that moment, we can look across the room at those whom we love. We can glance at those whom we've wronged. We can look out the window at a world that is yet to be perfected. Finally, we can look inside ourselves and find those parts of us that feel broken and lost. We can look, but as the Torah says, do not see what has gone astray. Do not look upon the world with despair. The world is unfolding in front of you, and you must not let it be lost. As we gather at the turning of the year, come back to the community and find the stone to stake your claim. We can all be made good again through tshuva, because nothing is lost until you let it be. You can stake your claim for the future by returning anger with love, loss with hope, worry with gratitude, and most of all, declare what has been lost can be found again, even until the 1,000th time.
This is what Joe Biden.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Who wrote those words?
Which words?
Didn't know apart. I mean,
Torah.
Rabbis?
It's in Torah. It's 22:1.
No, I understand. But then the rest of it, the commentary, I'm going to look inside. Did he write that?
Yes. Everything that's not in quotes is Farkas. The quote is 22:1. Do not see what has gone astray.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That's from 22:1. That's what I meant. Those are the actual words from Torah. The rest is his, unless he's quoting, like where he quotes a longer thing from the Midrash.
How recently did he write this? When was it written?
I just got it in my inbox this week. I don't know if he wrote it.
This is a living person.
Now, but yeah. Rabbi Noah Farkas is my colleague. He's young and edgy and awesome. So beautiful. So now let's look at the Likutei Moharan that I learned at Hartman. Da shetzarich linsoa lehatzadik lachzar al avedato. So again, this word avedato, what is lost to one. So no shetzarich linsoa lehatzadik lachzar al avedato. One must travel to a tzaddik in order to search for what one has lost. Because before a person comes into the air of this world, Malamdin umar'in lo kol ma shetzarich la'asot v'la'avod u'lahasig bazeh ha'olam. Before a person comes to the air of this world, meaning before they emerge from the birth canal, they are shown. So again, this language of seeing, they are shown and taught, each person, exactly what is necessary for them to do, to work, what they should be doing, their work, their service, and to accomplish in this world. Nishkach me'ito v'chevan sheyatza la'avir ha'olam miyad. But we forget. We forget. The second we come into the air of this world, immediately we forget. And there's a midrash that says this indentation in our upper lip is from the angel touching us here so that we forget. Kamosha amru rabotenu zichronam livracha, as our sages of blessed memory said, zichron et hashocheach oved, the one who has forgotten, the forgetter, meaning every single one of us, oved, is called lost. V'hashichicha hi bechinat aveda, and forgetting is a form of lostness. Kima amaram zichronam libracha, as our sages said, they're of blessed memory, mahir lishmoa umahir la'abed. It's said elsewhere in rabbinic writings, quick to hear and quick to lose. Like quick to listen and quick to lose. V'tzarich lachzar ulevakesh avedato. And it is absolutely necessary to search and to seek that which one has lost. V'ha'aveda shelo hi etzel hatzadik. And what's been lost to a person is with the tzaddik. So think of a teacher, think of a role model, think of an author, think of a poet, think of, right, someone you knew, think of community, right? What we've lost is with fill in the blank. Because the tzaddik has searched for what was lost to them and has found it. Right? So who do you go to help you find what you've lost? Somebody who's already done that work in their own life. Somebody who's already identified what they've lost and has figured out how to find it. Right? The achar shemotza chozer u'mevakesh achar avedot acherim. And we're talking about the tzaddik who, after finding it, goes back to help find the lostness of others. Ad shemotze gam avedatam, until they help, or this, if you want to say community, if you want to say a teacher, if you want to say a grandparent, right? Until they, or a therapist, until they help find also the lost of other people. Ad shemotze ha'avedot shel kol ha'olam, until they help, or this person helps find the lost stuff, the lostness of all of the world. Alkein tzarich lavo lechacham ulevakesh ulehakir avedato, and therefore you have to travel to a wise person and to seek and to recover, to reclaim avedato, what has been lost to you. Vilashuv ulekabala etzlo, to return and to receive it from that person. We can't find our own lostness. We can't. We have to go to somebody else. We have to go to somebody we trust. We have to read something that we trust, teachings that we trust. We have to read Torah. We have to, wherever it is we find it, we have to go where somebody's already done that work on what it means to find their own teacher, to help them reclaim what's been lost to them, or what their lostness is about. because all of us are lost. So they're taking this verse of Torah, Likutei Moharan is taking this verse of Torah to be a deep spiritual teaching. And that you have to go to the place where that's already been done. And that's where you can, somebody who's already done that can help you find yours. And somebody who's really done that work helps everybody around them actually find what's lost to them. And then, in that sense, helps return things to the world that have been lost to the world. And so we have to remember that we can't just say it's lost. Kind of like Noah Farkas is saying. You can't just go, it's lost, not until you decide it is, as he kept saying, right? Likutei Moharan, centuries earlier, is saying the same thing. It's not lost until you give up. Your job is to go find who's done the work that is going to help you be able, right, levakesh v'lehakir avedato, to go to seek and to receive what it is that you've lost. I feel like this is a lot of the work that we do with tshuva. This is a lot of the preparation work for the high holidays, right, is trying to figure out, like, who do I need to go to help me find what's lost.
You've been listening to Rabbi Amy Bernstein's Friday morning Torah study from Kehillat Israel in Pacific Palisades, California. For more information, go to our website, www.ourki.org.